Hi, this is Piper Blackwood.
And this is Veronica Fox.
Thank you for listening to the Pure Garbage Podcast.
Lex Cunningham here, along with some friends. We're back again for Raptors, not just number 1, but number 3, our volume in regards to following this great team and its miraculous season, starting with Big Red.
Yo.
And Teabagger, my man.
Yes, what's up?
And of course,
it's Mr. Smiles. What up?
That's right. Mr. Smiles is here, folks. Have no fears. All right, this season, it has evolved into almost like a showdown between teams, with Cleveland now pressing near the end, with Washington now pressing for a playoff spot. I believe they're in.
Yeah, they're in 8th right now, so the playoffs started today. We'd be playing Washington in the first round of the playoffs, so that's a tough matchup as they beat us down a couple of years ago. So I personally don't want to play Washington, but payback would be a good payback for them. So maybe I do want them after all. Now I'd say it that way.
The Wizards broke our hearts 2 years ago, guys.
Yeah.
We were the favorite in the series going in and home court advantage, and it just didn't work out well for us.
So let's back this up there, Big Red, and your thoughts on the Toronto-Cleveland game in which we lost. We got handed a pretty big loss, actually. It was kind of disappointing to watch our guys kind of go down like that with a 106, I believe, 112 loss. Some of the guys are talking that we know of within our Pure Garbage community that the Raptors may be playing possum, that maybe they're not showing Cleveland and the rest of the league everything that they have.
I mean, I'm hoping that that's part of the theory, but I think also sometimes there's just someone who plays better ball that day. Maybe that was just a day that, all the team was on. Maybe it was a day that we weren't on as much. But I mean, I could say, would you want to show everybody what you have for the playoffs? Because you know that you're already in first place now, especially because you're clinched, right?
Yeah.
Go ahead. What are they, 8.5 games back? They'll take a win.
I just think it was a shitty game.
I do agree. Like, you could see some of the plays, and it just wasn't like how many turnovers? I think it was 16 turnovers that day.
Crazy. They weren't shooting like they were supposed to. Like, and the game was close. They have to just blow teams out for them to. It's a mental thing with them. If they're close, then they start worrying about the refs and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Sure, they get some shitty calls, but at the end of the day, they can't be close like that.
Well, technically in that game with the Raptors only shooting for a 3-point advantage, 11 out of 34. Meanwhile, the Cavaliers were 13 for 30. The Raptors are more of a 3-point shooting team. Are we all in agreement on that?
Than Cleveland?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and Cleveland was 13 for 30. So the Raps and the Cavaliers were both poorly shooting for threes in that particular matchup. And then within the paint, they were 31-59, and Cleveland 25 for 47. Again, fairly toe-to-toe. 3-point shooting coming up in the future. Guys like C.J. Miles. You want to talk about that there,
Yeah,
Smiles?
well, C.J. Miles, since basically April started, has been struggling. So we need C.J. to show up in the playoffs. He's the first year of the Raptors, so it's been an up and down season. I've heard through the media whatever he had a kid this year, and he's been in and out in the lineups with injuries. So I don't know if he's distracted or what, but we signed him up to be a 3-point shooter. He's got to make threes when the money's down, and it's time to win.
And he's being good. It's just like that game in particular. He's usually the guy when we're lulling in a game that he comes out and re-energizes everybody by dropping the threes and
rejuvenates us.
Yeah, that game he just wasn't on.
And another thing about the Raptors too, like one of those things that I know Dwayne Casey, he hasn't been playing much this season, but Norman Powell, like he's one of those guys where he's had a horrible season. Like he actually started the season as a starting small forward, and he got benched for OG Anunoby, and now he barely plays. If he gets in, it's maybe for 5-10 minutes at a time, right? And for the him, so I'm sorry. And so one thing about Norm, when playoffs come, I think Dwayne Casey's gonna go back to I like Norm. I think he's tough kid. I think can bring some energy to the game. So I think if things go wrong or things are going sideways in the playoffs, which typically as Raptors fans we know over the years, playoff times come, they just don't do what they've been doing all season. There's something that's bad.
Now I'm going to throw some controversy out there. Give this some thought, guys. Fred VanVleet. Could he be one of the reasons why a guy like Powell seeing as many minutes as he used to? Because VanVleet can come into the game at any, usually in the third or fourth quarter, and he can pop off a three that can actually get a drive going.
And he can. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I don't know, because even last year you didn't really know Norm until the playoffs. He's the one who showed up in the playoffs. He's the only one who really showed up in the playoffs. So do you remember what he did last season?
Yeah. No,
really? It was the last playoffs that he showed up. It was like, yo, this guy's here, and DeMar and Lowry, where are they? and that's where he got his playing for this year. But last year, I don't even really remember him during the season. It's,
well, no, I remember him a particular game against Indiana, I believe, last year, in which he did okay. I think he ended up with 12 points, if my memory serves correct. I hope it was last year, maybe not the year before. Overall, Powell, I haven't been impressed this year. Van Fleet and a couple of the newer Raptors, I have been, partly because they're coming in and they're nailing points and creating drives. When we're down, say, by 2 or 3 in a game, and then all of a sudden a Van Fleet will put in 6 points within the first minute and a half of actually being on the court, whereas Powell seems to be a little bit slower to warm up in a game these days.
But it's when you're playing less time, you are going to be a little slower. You know what I mean? You got kind of get rusty, So I don't think this year, season-wise, we've had enough to get enough from Powell. Like I was saying, I think he is a preseason guy, but we'll have to see.
But one thing that I'm also nervous about the playoffs thing is, in the playoffs, every possession is more important, right? So teams typically play their starters way more minutes than they do in the regular season. Like, basically all the starters typically play 35 to 40 minutes. The Raptors all season consistently have played 5 bench guys on the court at the same time, or basically our whole bench unit, but then pretty much the best bench in the league. But will Dwayne Casey have the courage to play 5 bench guys at the same time against the other team's full starting lineup?
Well, he has the quality bench guys to do it.
Yeah.
I think
if it's not broken, don't fix it, right? Look what they've been doing all year.
It's just over the years, the history of the NBA, typically as the playoffs come, your bench plays a lot less, right?
Okay, here's something for you. Toronto-Boston. We're going to segue into Toronto-Boston, in which the Raps won that game. And it was 96-78 for the Raptors. With the Raptors coming out with a slow start, typically in the first quarter, down was a 20-14, and then they come back in the second quarter to put up 29 points, and it was 29-13. And then in the third quarter, they led with 24-20 points, and then they held on in the fourth quarter. But Boston is a team on the rise, and we've all said this before. Boston took it pretty hard that night, and I remember that game, and that was a bounce back after we lost to Cleveland. So we do have the ability. Are we all in agreement that the Raptors can bounce back? And what do you think of the coach overall?
For sure, I think we can bounce back from the losses. Like you look, like you said, we lost to Cleveland by 6 points. That's a big thing because for the last couple seasons, Cleveland's taken us out. So when you lose to Cleveland, and then when you come back in, get your head back in the game, it's like, okay, listen, we can do this, and we beat them almost by 20 points. You know what I mean? So that's definitely, can we do it? For sure.
Yeah, and they were in first place for how long?
We've been in, and Boston's still 3.5 games back.
But they were missing
Boston is not Cleveland.
Kyrie, and he's gone, but they've been winning without him. But that's
I don't
Kyrie.
think you can say like, okay, Kyrie's not here, so the Raptors wouldn't have done that. I think we could still do it.
I think,
and the good thing is, I mean, Kyrie's out for the whole playoffs, anyways, right?
That's right.
So woot. We did it once. Keep it going.
Boston. Sorry.
Yeah, it is sucks that Kyrie. But honestly, I'd rather beat them with Kyrie.
Yes.
But
Absolutely.
whatever the easiest way to get to the finals, I'm all for that for the Raptors.
Absolutely.
I just want a finals appearance. Like, I want to get there.
Exactly.
And maybe I'm just as a whole Raptors or Toronto fan in general. I'm not even thinking like championship. I'm just like, get to the finals, and then anything can happen against the Western Conference teams, right?
Okay, so now let's throw out the Indiana game. Toronto then moved on to play Indiana, in which they won that game single-handedly. I believe it was 92-72 for the Raptors. So we played Indiana, we beat Indiana. Now we're going to be going in Orlando, Detroit, and Miami. By the time you hear this podcast, folks, they'll probably be facing Miami on the Wednesday. The Raptors are most likely going to face the Wizards. Your thoughts? If we do face the Wizards, how far will that series go?
Yeah, we're a different team than 2 years ago.
No, I said the Wizards are going to get smoked. I'm sorry.
I hope so as well. I hope so, but
I'm not thinking about no years back. I'm talking about this year.
Yeah,
this is different.
I hope so.
You can't take us 2 years
what's
to
their season
today.
series with them this year?
I don't know off the top of my head, to be honest, but I think they beat us. I remember actually they beat us once for sure. I think we're 2-1 against the Wizards this year.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure, because I know the Wizards beat us once for sure without John Wall already, right? So now that John Wall's back.
Okay, so now I'm going to raise a question here since our man here had mentioned Norman Powell and how he shows up in the playoffs. Field goal percentage this year. In this season, he's 40%, 40.6%. I don't know overall career-wise. I'm just trying to gather that information now. Powell being 6'4", 215 pounds. He's averaging about 5.5 points a game, and then with the less minutes, of course, he's not getting as many touches, but he's only at 1.2 assists and 1.7 rebounds. Now, we all know he's not a big rebounder, but he's known for as a field goal artist. He's not a driving to the basket guy. He's a two just outside the paint, and the odd three. Am I wrong? Am I right?
He's that guy that comes in for the dunk to get the crowd going. He's going to be our playoff guy. I don't care what anybody says. He's going to be in there. I think they kept him for the playoffs just because of his performance last year.
Yeah.
I think he's there for the playoffs. I think he's going to get more minutes in the playoffs, and he's going to he's going to kill people.
Now, okay, I compared Fred VanVleet, the 6 foot, the 6 foot, 195 pound guard. He's averaging 42.8 where he's averaging, and then 3.2 assists with 2.5 rebounds. So the production out of this 24-year-old, they're both 24 as well. Can you believe that? That's 20, and both can start on any team in the league.
For sure. Like,
yeah,
you look
I'm
at
a huge
VanVleet.
Fred VanVleet fan. That's pretty much, he's my, on the bench unit for sure, he's my favorite player on the team. Honestly, Colin Demar are my favorite players, but right now, like, Fred VanVleet, he's making, and this is a money time for him. Like, he's basically playing for a contract, right? So a good playoff showing. Some other team, hopefully he's a Raptor for a long term, but some other team's going to come calling with money.
I think with this year, like, especially, out of the 5 out of his 6 last games, he's got, almost 10 points per game.
Yeah.
He had 15 against Boston the other night, which, I mean, that's good for off the bench, right?
He's gonna be one of the first off the bench
for sure. Like, that's
and his expression never changes. No matter if he's having a good game, bad game, up, down, he's just steady. Basically, steady Freddy. What he is, and he's consistent. So that's in the playoffs. You're gonna need that guy. He's not gonna get too emotionally high or emotionally low. He's just gonna come and bring it.
All right, folks, you heard it from our experts here live from the garbage room in beautiful downtown Oshawa. We're going to be taking this thing to the ACC soon enough, hopefully, for the Washington, whatever they are, and the beautiful Toronto Raptors. Until then, continue to listen to the Pure Garbage Podcast on the Pure Garbage Network.
Thank you for listening to the Pure Garbage Podcast. You can find us on Podbean,
iTunes,
Google Play,
Stitcher,
SoundCloud,
and Twitter at Pure Garbage Pod.